Hari. Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam 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 Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu ki Nitya Gita Romanchakam pasru Taranga bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanama Diramaja Nado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Triptan Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Shirari Kama Gabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shirari Kama Gabayara Para Pratikshana swa dhanalalupasya Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Gora Shri Charanara Nekunja Yuno Rati Kelisidhai Jayali Bhir Yukti Apekshaniya Nekunja Yuno Jayali Bhir Yukti Tatrati Dakya Ativalavasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Tatrati Dakya Ativalavasya Sakshadhari Tvena Shamastashrashri Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhuvi Sakshadhari Tvena Shamastashrashri Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Bande Guru Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vachatari Shatarine Namaste Deve Gauravani Nirvishesha Sha Shunavadi Patata Dishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhara Shivasari Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Haribo Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govindaram Srimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Radha Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Sitaram Sitaram Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo Jai Vishwapar Paramita Prabhaja Kacharya Suttara Sarashishimar ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siramanish Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prima Bhakti Attapatita Pavanish Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakti Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavarana Avatar Ki Jai Golokira Pramadhan Shri Nam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Yugo Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopukna Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathurudam Ki Jai Fellowship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Purna Vadip Eka Chakra Dham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smat Swadhare Visudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanu Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Maturadharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo All glory to the somebody bodies All glory to the somebody bodies All glory to the somebody bodies All glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga
जय जय हो प्रभु की हरि बोल। नमस्ते नरसिंहाया, नमस्ते नरसिंहाया,
नमस्ते
प्रहलाद लाद दायिने, हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वसहारी, तिलटंकानकलाये, चितो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा, यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा, बाहिर नरसिंहा हृदय नरसिंहा, नरसिंहमुदिं शरणं प्रपदे, तव कर कमलवरे नखां अद्भुत सिंहा, दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुविंगा, केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, तव कर कमलवरे नखां अद्भुत सिंहा, दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा, जय जगदीश जय नरसिंह देव, जय नरसिंह देव, जय नरसिंह देव, जय नरसिंह देव,
जय नृसिंहदेव,
जय भक्त प्रहलाद, जय भक्त प्रहलाद, जय भक्त प्रहलाद, जय प्रहलाद महाराज,
जय भक्त प्रहलाद,
जय जय प्रभुपाद, 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 प्रभुपाद,
जय प्रभुपाद, 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 प्रभुपाद,
जय जय गुरुदेव, 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 गुरुदेव,
जय
बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय,
जय
प्रहलाद की जय।
तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतभक्त नमो नमः
विष्णु भक्ति पत देवी सत्यवती
वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतभक्त नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय विष्णु भक्ति पत देवी सत्यवती
वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतभक्त नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति पत देवी सत्यवती
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावन हैया बेलासी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावन हैया बेलासी जे तुम्हारा शरणाला तारा वंच पूर्ण कृपा करे करतारे वृंदावन वासी तुम्हें कृपा करी करतारे वृंदावन वासी नमो नमः मोराए बेला बेलास कुंज दियो नायने रेबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी हमें नमो नमः एनिवे दनाधारा Sakirayano Gatakara Deine Vedana Sevayadi Karadiye Koroni Jadasi Dina Krishna Dasika Eyena Mora Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sada Navasi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Basi Namo Namo Yanikani Sapapani Brahma Hatari Kanisa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradaktina Pari Pari Kani sapapane Brahma tani kani sa Tani tani prana santi pradakshina pari pari Kani kani sapapane Brahma tani kani sa Tani tani prana santi pradakshina pari pari Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Binda Devi Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Binda Devi. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Vrindayi Tulasi Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namah. Vrindayi Tulasi Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namah. Vrindayi Tulasi Priyaye Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to attend the service of Shri Radha Krishna. Will we take shelter to make his wishes fulfilled? Bestow myself on him, making resident in Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always feel in love Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanama Janam Bhavamahadavani Nivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Viparanam Ananda Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Sadhanam Savatmasnam Paramparam Jayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nam Akari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Eta Dusita Vakripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamiyajani Nanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Karorapi Saishnuna Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahitu Ki Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritama Vishame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashru Dharaya Vadanam Gadgadharudaya Gira Pulakai Chitam Vapu Kada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakshusa Pravrusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Asleshava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanaar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Vidadhatulam Pato Mat Pranatastu Saivanapara Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Varanaya Krishna Prema Pradati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Guru Tishenma Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namaste Saraswati Devam Guru Vani Pracharini Nivishesha Sunnavari Pasattari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of a conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested with your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause, the devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for his Lord is my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme the bodies who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or reading scriptures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of the chanting of the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10.
To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be an attendant while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees. The Lord, they are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. One should call Patrabhyascha Kripasindabhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhya Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Besta Bhuti Vismati Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganya Timiranda Sya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamahayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jitaha Pachakalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Satvajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakha Nimitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Disatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shri Vasavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Bhavasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vit Pralamba Rasambode Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Savabhumashi Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Drabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Chaitanya Namne Gurichase Namaha Bhaktam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadambujo Radha Madanan Mohano Divyad Vindaranda Kalputrumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Vihi Sevyamana Smarami Shiman Rasarasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Maner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestunam Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitanandana Adintam Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamini Prakata Satmasukalpa Riksha Laksha Vrite Susurabira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kranantam Adarindo Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvana Madhyavam Siratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribangala Litanya Taprakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendri Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vikrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adhyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyastiyat Prabhadasimya Vichintya Tatre Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chaitam Jagananda Koti Yas Chakti Rasti Jagananda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Deo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayanabusa Suktaryam Eva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Sarpati Bhavita Vistabir Ya Eva Nicharupa Dayakalavi Goloka Evani Visata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaram Chinta Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitista Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvanesukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Yotisva Sesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Pinam Tad Brahman Niskalam Anantam Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitayamanam Satpavalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasuya Prani Nam Patirflam Samartaram Upetya Vilaya Tena Bhuvanan Jaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sutesa Tesu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitascha Yena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shastista Te Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Vibhunani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chitesta Sesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pitakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutama Pitatasam Vaitikarya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparchadevi Hita Santanam Abhyupetya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanudana Yastadra Kevihicha Vishnu Tayavibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narlava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagananda Saramakupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Samurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalambya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalavitsesu Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalation Jesu Teja Sriyanki Yat Prakatiyat Apitat Vatat Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganati Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agni Mahika Ganamambu Marudhi Sascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Sudesa Savita Sagalagrahanam Raja Samasta Sudamurti Hasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nishayastru Tayasta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Patakava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matari Bhava Pakadapabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yas Trendra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahajapana Adi Biti Vatsaya Moha Guru Guru Vasavya Bhava Sanchinti Tasya Sadvisintana Maparete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shuyakanta Kanta Parama Purisha Kalpataravo Jumabu Mischintama Niganama Ito Yamamratam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Abhivam Sipriyasa Kechiranandam Chati Parama Pyatat Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihishwa Vidishrabi Byasta Shivahan Nimesa Dakyava Vajitina Hyatra Pisamaya Bhajesvita Dikvam Tamaham Irkul Kamitiam Vitantaste Santakshati Virachara Katibaye Guruvastika Priyaski Jay. Spiritual message receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual message delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence out of my respectful basis. Not the lotus tree with such spiritual masters, an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing, playing musical instruments. Spiritual masters always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears fall from his eyes like waves out from my respectful basis. Not the lotus tree are such as spiritual master. Spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship. But the Lord, I have my respectful basis. Not the lotus tree as such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and such. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I have my respectful basis. Not the lotus tree is such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is always always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited consequential passing on erotic and modern qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I of my respectful base, note the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in existing gopis who at different times made different tastes arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. For my most humble obeisance, not the lotus feet is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, for my respectful obeisance, not the lotus feet is such a spiritual master, a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advance. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance, not the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Srimad Bhagavatam Rankaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text number 34. Deha Nyasam Cha Tasyaivam Dhiranam Daryavardhanam Anyasam Duskaratamam Pusunam Viklavatmanam Deha Nyasam, entering the body. Cha, also. Tasya, his. Evam, also. Dhiranam, of great sages. Darya, perseverance. Vardhanam, increasing. Anyasam, for others. Duskarataram, very difficult to ascertain. Pasunam, of the beasts. Viklava, disturbed. Atmanam, of such a mind. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord's glorious acts and His acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than His devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental forms and pastimes of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, are difficult subject matters for those who are not devotees to understand. The Lord never reveals Himself to persons like the Jnanis and Yogis, and there are others who, because of their envying the Lord from the bottom of their hearts, are classified amongst the beasts. And for such envious beasts, the subject matter of the Lord's appearance and disappearance is simply a mental disturbance. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.15, the miscreants, who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of Godhead at any stage due to asurika bhava, or a spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. The transcendental bodily expansions manifested by the Lord for His pastimes in the mortal world and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are difficult subject matters, and those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The more they discuss the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord in the asuric spirit, the more they enter into the darkest region of hell, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 16.20. Anyone who is against the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less a beastly creature, as confirmed in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord's glorious acts and His acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than His devotees to understand, and for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now we see why there are so many people in this world that don't understand anything about Krishna. And if they do try to understand, they do it by speculating, which means that they will never understand anything. And this is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Asurim yonim apana mudha janmani janmani mam aprapt yaiva konteya tato yant adamam gatim. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Bhagavad Gita 16:20, and says, it is known that God is all merciful. But here we find that God is never merciful to the demoniac. It is clearly stated that the demoniac people, life after life, are put into the wombs of similar demons, and not achieving the mercy of the Supreme Lord, they go down and down, so that at last they achieve bodies like those of cats, dogs, and hogs. It is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance of receiving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. In the Vedas also it is stated that such persons gradually sink to become dogs and hogs. It may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all merciful if he is not merciful to such demons. In answer to this question, in the Vedanta Sutra we find that the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. The placing of the asuras, the demons, in the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but anyone who is killed by the Supreme Lord becomes liberated. There are instances in history of many asuras, Ravana, Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, to whom the Lord appeared in various incarnations just to kill them. Therefore, God's mercy is shown to the asuras if they are fortunate enough to be killed by him. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we see that this original walking away from Krishna that a minority of jivas have done is the cause of all kinds of misery for them. And that misery becomes more and more intense as they continue to blaspheme the Lord. But yet, the whole purpose of the material creation is to give a chance to the conditioned souls to free themselves from the cycle of birth and death. That's the Lord's ultimate mercy. So, but because the soul is eternal, if one continually blasphemes the Lord in different species, they go down and down, and they become nityabada. Nityabada means eternally entangled in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So, what the devotees become is liberated souls by engaging in devotional service. And devotional service, of course, as we've said many times, is the only way by which one can free themselves from the cycle of birth and death. So, there's a saying, I know the solution, but I can't do it. So, people who know the solution but do not do it are very unfortunate. And that's because they can't control their mind and senses. So therefore Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Naham Veda na tapasa, na dhanina na chejaya, sakya evam vidodrastum dristavan asimam yata. This is 11:53. It says, the form you are seeing, Arjuna, with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas. nor by undergoing various penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. So this is an important verse because it emphasizes what Krishna is going to say next. He says, Bhaktya tvananyaya sakya aham evam vidurirjana gyatam jastam chitatmena pavestum cha parantapa. He says, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So, why does he use the word mysteries? We've been discussing that the last couple of days. It is a mystery that simply by engaging in Krishna's service, one can be elevated to the highest position of a pure devotee. And it's also said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, first canto, 5th chapter, verse number 22, in the long purport, that the jiva, the infinitesimally small spiritual spark who we are jivas, is more powerful than the sun. It's an unbelievable statement, but it is true. And why is it true? Because we, as part and parcel of Krishna, if we are always connected to Krishna, then we're always in the same type of position as the Lord that is transcendental to the material nature. Therefore, if you're transcendental to material nature, you're transcendental to the sun, which is part of material nature. And you are eternal, whereas the sun appears and disappears. So therefore, the jiva becomes more powerful than the sun. So these are incomprehensible concepts for the mundane wranglers who are always engaged in speculation, but not for the devotee. So, but yet, Krishna also says, Trividam narakasyena yedam dwaram nasanam atmana kamam krudas tata lobas tasmat etat chayam tyajet. He says, there are 3 gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So, when we become angry because there's something we want to do or something we want to have, and we can't do it, and we can't have it, and anyone that seems to be an obstacle to obtaining that thing we want, we become angry. And that anger evolves, it gets worse and worse, and if we're frustrated in getting what we want, we become greedy. And if we continue, then we basically become crazy. So it says, Dhavato shyam pumsa sangat tesu prajayate sangat sanjayate kamakroda prajayate. Krodhad, it says Krodhad. Krodhad bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibrama smriti brahmsat buddhinasat pranasyati. So, chapter 2, verses 62 and 63, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So this is happening over and over again to every person in the material world. And if we understand these 3 verses, that is, 16th chapter, 21st verse, 2nd chapter, 62nd and 63rd verse, we can save ourselves a huge amount of trouble and also avoid being constantly prisoner in the material world because of birth, death, old age, and disease. That's how powerful these verses are. But of course, nobody listens. Usually, they think they know everything, and they get angry, and then that anger is coming from lust. Lust is a almost uncontrollable desire to do something or have something, and that lust is coming from attachment to the false ego, which becomes attracted to the material world and forgets its eternal relationship to Krishna. And it all starts by seeing incorrectly. See, just like if you see, let's say, the Mother Yasoda saw Putana, who changed her body from a demon into a, we would say, a beautiful heavenly woman. And she spoke very sweetly to Mother Yasoda and said, "Oh, I would love to give my breast to your son Krishna." But she had put poison on her breast. And then Mother Yasoda thought that, oh, here's such a beautiful woman, and she's so gentle, and she wants to feed my son Krishna, I'll let her do it. Okay? So, in the same way, we can become illusioned by Maya and by different people. Every day, people are assuming a persona to cheat others. So they act really nice, etc., etc. But when they don't get what they want, they get angry. That's the proof that they're not actually genuine. See? They get angry and they start belittling Krishna consciousness or getting in arguments with devotees or just rejecting Krishna consciousness because they didn't get what they wanted. You see? So these are tests. These are tests that Krishna throws in our path to see whether we're actually sincere about Krishna consciousness or we're not sincere. Whether we're actually hearing properly or not hearing properly. Whether we actually want to be a devotee or not want to be a devotee. See? When does a person stop being a devotee? When they can find something wrong and then walk away without feeling guilty. See? And when you're looking for something wrong, you always find something wrong. Right? That's why Advaita Sarvabhutanam Maitra Karana Evacha Nirmama Nirhankara Sasantim Adigachati. So it says that the devotee does not become his enemy's enemy. That right there is almost incomprehensible for most people because they naturally become their enemy's enemy. And Maitra Karana Evacha, that the devotee is friend to all living entities, even people they don't like. So therefore, it says in the Shiksastakam, third verse, that one should always be very tolerant and not become angry and disillusioned by being humble and always humble and meek in the execution of devotional service. And if there are setbacks or if there are controversies, not to be disturbed by them, but rather to continue on in devotional service, forgiving others. Just like one time when Prabhupada was speaking, some man interrupted and spoke harshly. Later on, Prabhupada said, I must have committed an offense to him in a previous life. So he's understanding things. So it's not, because he understands things, he doesn't get upset. He understands the genesis, the origin of it. So therefore, he just continues in devotional service without stopping, without getting disillusioned, without getting angry. So these are tests. Janadapi sunichena tararapi saistana amanina manadina kirtaniya sadahari. So one should be more humble than the straw on the street, more tolerant than the tree, and ready to offer all respect to others, even those that don't respect you. In such a state of mind, one can become sadahari, constantly chanting Hare Krishna with no interruptions, because one is not this body. If we identify with the body, which means the gross body, and the subtle body, which includes the mind, intelligence, and the false ego, then we say, oh, you insulted me, how dare you do this, and if you want, let's go outside and we'll duke it out. So, people become crazy because they're identifying with the false ego and with the body, right? And they say, oh, now I found a reason to walk away from Krishna consciousness, because this person insulted me, or that person did this, or this thing is happening and it's not right. Yeah, if there's something that's happening that's not right, why don't you stick around and solve that problem, right? That's what Prabhupada did. He was faced with problems over and over again. He didn't say, oh, I give up. These Americans, they're always engaging in arguing, and they're always have these false egos, and they're all, these Americans. No, he didn't say that. He said, these jiva souls, they need Krishna consciousness to get purified. Therefore, I will stay here and do my best to help them become Krishna conscious. So that's a real devotee. And real devotee doesn't give up. Like one time, this one big devotee said, Prabhupada, I'm resigning. I can't function in India. I don't understand the Indian culture. I don't understand Indians. I'm going back to America where I understand the people. And Prabhupada said, you're not allowed to resign. He said, what? What do you mean I can't resign? I said, you're not allowed to resign. This is Krishna's service. You cannot resign. Yeah. They didn't let him go. He said, you have to stay here. You cannot resign. It's not allowed in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so we see when one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Oh, so if you want to be very dear to Krishna, you better follow what he's saying here. 12th chapter and 13th and 14th verse. You better follow it. That's if you want to be dear to Krishna. If you want to break your relationship with Krishna, then okay, just you come under the control of lust, anger, and greed. The 3 doors to hell. Yes, the 3 doors to hell. This is what is explained in the 16th chapter, where it says, Jividam narakasya yedam. So, narakasya yedam means narakasya means hell. So, and idam is referring to a gate. So it says there are 3 gates to hell, and they are dwaram, nasanam, atmanam, which means, dwaram means the gate to hell, and they are kama, krodha, and lobha. lust, anger, and greed. So when you become lusty and you're not able to achieve what you're obsessively desiring, you become angry, and when anger progresses, you end up becoming very greedy because you can't get what you want. So you get very, very greedy. See? So, Lord Krishna says, Tasmat etat trayam tyajet. You should give these things up. They're very negative. And it says in the purport, the beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, anger and greed arise. So lust is an excessive desire. An excessive desire. Now, there's desire, right? And attachment. But when it becomes excessive and almost uncontrollable, that's called lust, right? So in America today, people think that lust is a good thing. Right? There's this one lady, what's her name? She's big nonsense. I always forget the names of these nonsense people. Anyway, she was in court because she insulted a policeman really bad, right? She's a movie star, but she was rather old at this time, and her husband was in the court, and he said, "Judge, just look at my husband. You know, he's so frustrated because we don't have any sex anymore." You know, he's talking nonsense like that in the court, right? And she said, "I can't have sex because I'm in too much anxiety with this court case." These are crazy people talking like that. You see, these are what we call asuras. All they do is think about nonsense. They can't become serious about life. So we see how the beginning of the demoniac life is described here. One tries to satisfy his lust. Well, lust is an excessive desire to do something or have something, right? And when he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. Obviously, the test to become liberated is very difficult. One has to control lust, anger, and greed. And that's almost impossible to control in the material world. But it is possible if one becomes serious about chanting Hare Krishna and remaining always very humble and meek. And this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita also when it says that there are 6 symptoms of surrender, or the process of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam raksisya ititi vishwaso gopchitve varanam tata atmaniksepa karpanye tad sadvida saranagati. So these are 6 processes of surrender to the Lord. That is, anukulyasya sankalpa, we should accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. Pratikulyasya varjanam, give up everything unfavorable. Raksisya vishwaso, and accept Krishna as our only protector. We don't need anything or anyone else. Krishna is our real protector. And why does he protect us? Because we're completely surrendered to him and always engaged in the service. Therefore, obviously, he's going to protect his devotee, and we have the proof of that. He protected Arjuna, the Pandavas, Draupadi, Kunti Devi, and so forth. So he promises to protect his devotee, who is sincerely engaged in his service, right, and following the orders of Guru and Krishna. And then, Gopchitra Varanam Tata, one should not, and then it says, Atman Niksepa Karpanya. We should not have any other real interest in life than serving Krishna. That should be our real vocation in life. And that service, and we should always be seeking service. Prabhupada once says, the only question a devotee should have is, my dear Gurudev, how can I serve you? So the service is our connection to Krishna. You're not connecting to a mundane person, you're connecting to Krishna himself. Because he says, Bhaktya Mam, he says in the 11th chapter, Bhaktya Tvananyaya Sakya Aham Evam Vidurirjana Gyatum Dastum Chitatvena Bhavestum Cha Parantapa. It's only by devotional service, Arjuna, that I can be known. Or Bhaktya Tvananyaya Sakya Aham Evam Vidurirjana. No, I'm sorry. Bhaktya Mam Abhijananti Yavanyas Chasmi Tatvato Tato. So he says it's only by devotional service that I can be known. Okay? So here we are, two very important verses in the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, 54th verse, and 18th chapter, 55th verse. Bhaktya mam abhijananti yavanyas chasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato gyatva vishtetad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service, and when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So, devotional service is our connection to Krishna. When we engage in devotional service, we're no longer under the influence of the three modes of material nature. We're no longer basically subject to a false ego, because we're doing our eternal activity, that is serving Krishna. So when a person stops serving, that means they've fallen under the control of lust, anger, and greed, which is Maya's trick. This is her trick. And they say, oh, now I found a reason to leave Krishna consciousness. You see. Actually, there's no reason. The Prabhupada said, you're not allowed to resign. You're not going anywhere. You have to continue your service. What do you mean you're going to resign? That's nonsense, right? Did Prabhupada resign? No. He for almost 2 years, he was a failure even in the United States. He was a failure in India in many ways. He was struggling like anything. So he comes to the United States, and at least, let's say for at least 1 year, he was a failure. Everything was going downward for him. And he was thinking about going back. But then he firmed up his mind and said, I'm not going back. I'm going to follow my guru's order. And then what happened? Tremendous success. So we should never give up. The success is just around the corner if we're sincere. Because if we're sincere, Krishna is going to help you. And he's going to protect you. And if you say, oh, I give up, then you lose the protection of Krishna and the instruction of Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada said this is the beginning of a Suric life. Right? When we reject Krishna's instructions, reject Krishna's protection, etc. So, these are important points. Now, coming back to today's verse, it says that the Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand. And for the beasts, meaning the really low-class people, the asuras, they are simply a mental disturbance. And that's a fact. Guess who was really mentally disturbed? Kamsa. He was Krishna conscious, always thinking of Krishna, but in a negative way. And he was always worried, and it was a mental disturbance for him, He was expecting to be killed at any moment, right? And he took these dire, he resorted to dire tactics to try and save himself. There's an interesting story. There was a man who had some knowledge, but a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So he was using his logic, and he said, obviously Yamaraj is a devotee of Krishna, and devotees of Krishna really devotees, they bathe 3 times a day. So, understanding that, which is correct, right? He thought, why don't I smear my own stool on my body? That way, if Yamaraj comes to get me, he won't touch me because he's a devotee, and they never touch stool. So he started smearing his stool all over his body, thinking that Yamaraj wouldn't get him that way. So this is using logic, shastric evidence, right? And so forth, but in the wrong way. So, and obviously Yamaraj got him without touching him. So this is just like, Hiranyakashipu thought he was invincible because the conditions that Brahma gave him, he thought were enough to make him immortal. But no, he could not imagine that there was a half-man, half-lion incarnation of Krishna called Nrsingadev. He couldn't imagine such a creature existed, right? And he thought it was impossible for him to get killed, but no, it became possible. So, therefore, if we're not protected by Krishna, we're in a very dangerous position, right? And it's a downward spiral. So, therefore, we should never leave Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said that. He said that never leave Krishna consciousness. I was in a lecture. I heard a lecture by him, and he gave it in Paris in 1972 or 3, when we opened a new temple there, and he came, and he said, never leave Krishna consciousness. He said, I know there are difficulties, but you should have faith that those difficulties will eventually go away. He said, never leave Krishna consciousness. So that, I can't forget that. He said it clearly. And but there are many reasons why we might want to leave Krishna consciousness, right? So many reasons. But they're not valid reasons. They're based on our false ego that for some reason or other gets discouraged or disgusted or angry or whatever. So, therefore, Atma Niksepa Karpanye, the 6th principle of surrender, is to always remain meek and gentle in devotional service. Meek and gentle. So therefore, it says, let me just read what that says. 18th chapter, 65th verse, in the purport, it says, according to the devotional process, one should simply accept such religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position in the social order. But if by executing his duty one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. What is Krishna consciousness? Trinadapi suni chena tarorapi saistana amanina manadina kirtaniya sadahari. That's Krishna consciousness, right? Remain more humble than the straw on the street, more tolerant than a tree. Everybody makes trees suffer. Everybody. Somebody comes with his girlfriend and he makes a heart, carves a heart in the bark of the tree. Johnny loved Janie, and with an arrow, Imagine how painful that is to the tree, right? So, everyone, the insects and diseases and the sun and the rain and the cold, and the tree's standing in one place for thousands of years, just suffering. Right? The only reason the tree can handle the suffering is because the consciousness of the tree is very low. Just like the only reason an embryo in the womb of the mother can survive is because the consciousness is rather low. When it gets closer to birth, the baby is like kicking and moving around. So let me get the heck out of here. I'm being bitten by these worms. My mom's eating bad meat. And these worms are in the intestines, and they're coming into the embryo and biting me, So a lot of bad things happening in the womb, because he's suffocating almost, right? So he said, "Let me get out of here. If I get out of here, Krishna, I promise you, if you take a X-ray of the womb, you'll see the baby is like this, praying, 'Get me out of here, my Lord,' because it's severe suffering. The more conscious he becomes, or she becomes, the more they can feel the pain of being in such a suffocating environment. So it says, Atma Nikshepa Karpanya. So it says, one may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position and social order, but it is by executing his duty one does not, but if by executing his duty one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. There's like just a waste of time, all that service one did, because it didn't end up becoming Krishna conscious. Anything that does not lead to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness should be avoided. One should be confident that in all circumstances Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. Krishna will see to that. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. As soon as one seriously engages himself in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, at once he becomes freed from all contamination of material nature. There are different processes of religion and purificatory processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders unto Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. There you go. So, we should never leave Krishna consciousness. We should always be engaged in devotional service. Then all problems will go away. And we won't be disturbed by this or that. There's always going to be some disturbances in material life, but we won't be disturbed because we have a one-track mind, service to Krishna. So that is oneness with the Lord. He wants us to serve, we want to serve, that means there's oneness, right? That doesn't mean we become Krishna, but there's oneness of purpose. That's the way you become one with the Lord, by oneness of purpose. So our purpose is to serve the Lord, and the Lord is exhorting us, please come and serve me. I will protect you. You have nothing to fear. So, okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? There's a mystery about this, And I'm going to discuss that in deeper detail tomorrow. Yes.
Thank you, Chamaraj. This is reference to 11.54.
Yes.
And in the purport says, Krishna can be understood, in the translation, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about undivided devotional service? Like what are we referring here with undivided?
Means no vacation, no no other activity other than devotional service in your life. Look at Prabhupada's life, right? Okay, he was taking care of his family, he had a business, of course, but at the right time he gave it all up and engaged in 100% Krishna consciousness. And look what he did. So much wonderful things he did when he did that. Right? He lost 5 kids, he got 5,000 kids. Right? And the 5,000 kids were more dedicated to him than the 5 kids that he had. Right? not that he was seeking that, but Krishna sent those people to help him achieve his purpose, which was to print many, many books and have them distributed and to build temples and make devotees and have Rath Yatra and Janmashtami and, and initiate people into Brahminical life. So many things he did because he was protected by Krishna. He was supposed to die much earlier, but Krishna protected him so he could get his mission done and then leave right away, not being attached to it. So, never leave Krishna consciousness. Always be engaged in devotional service. In fact, it says, where does it say that? Okay. Yeah, I don't have it with me right now. Anyway, undivided or unalloyed devotional service, undivided attention. He's using those words. Un means never. We should always be connected to Krishna in the association. Devotees always be engaged in devotional service. So Ananda Mela is an intense devotional service, very intense, right? We're up we're up all night. The next day you got to go to work, and and 3 days of intense activity. Most people say, I can't do that. I don't want to do that, right? So we have enough dedicated people who are willing to do that, and because of that, thousands and thousands of people came. By the way, Madhua sent an email today in which he says, from his point of view, our festival was the most frequented, had the most people of any Rath Yatra festival in the United States. Because he goes around, right, to all the... Yeah. He said, my estimation, he said, I think this is the most crowd of any Rath Yatra in the United States. Why does he say that? Because this is a destination crowd. It's not that, let's have Rath Yatra in Venice Beach. Well, already in Venice Beach there's thousands of people, right? But there's nobody on a Sunday in Redmond City Hall campus. It's a handful of people there, right? All of a sudden, this huge crowd comes, right? So it's a destination crowd. It's not, they're already there anyway, right?
In an extremely hot weather.
Yeah, in extremely hot weather, right?
Compared to last year, this year is not much. If you have seen 2019, that's it.
Well, there were a lot of people then too, but no, I think we had more people. If not, it's because we had a little bit smaller space. But no, I'm telling you, there were a lot of people in this festival, and he knows because he goes to all the festivals, right? And he said, in my estimation, that you got the most people of anybody in the United States, any temple in the United States. So that's a great achievement, I think, right? Okay. Any other questions?
This question is more to do with Srila Prabhupada's own children versus, he was able to inspire thousands and thousands, and now it's a huge movement. So how's that, so like when Krishna has given his own children also, why none of Prabhupada's children were inspired by...
Oh, one of them was.
One
of them was. The other four, they had respect for their father, but it's not that they became like ISKCON devotees. Right? One of them became, his daughter became an initiated ISKCON devotee, but unfortunately she died in the flood in Mayapur. But he was a devotee. He was a devotee. Prabhupada liked him a lot. I met him several times. He's a very nice man, very gentle person. So you're saying why? Why? Well, because devotee means one is convinced that they should use their maximum time engaged in Krishna's service. So he had, his wife and others. His wife was in a sense a devotee, or let's say a good Hindu. She was not a bad woman. She was a very good woman, but she was not into this ISKCON culture of constant festivals and getting up early in the morning and chanting rounds and all those things. I mean, she did puja every day in the house, right? She was a very good Hindu woman, but she was not like a gung-ho devotee, let's put it like that, right? Ready to do anything to serve Krishna. She was serving in her way, and she was raising her kids, and she was always faithful. She wasn't a bad person. But eventually, she did have a few little bad habits, like she couldn't give up, I think, drinking tea or coffee or something like that. And she would always, Prabhupada would always be inviting people to come to dinner and things like that. So that disturbed her a little bit also. There are things like that, I mean, she was a good person, but, she was not completely dedicated to serving Krishna. But because Prabhupada was, protecting her and so forth, like one time I went to Prabhupada's nephew's shop in Calcutta, right, with a friend of mine, and he knew where this was. So we sit down, and he had a watch repair company. It was a small shop, but, he had about 10 or 12 employees, there. And they're all sitting, there's a big table, and there's chairs around the table, and they're all fixing watches and things like that. And he's sitting there also watching them and getting orders and selling things and so forth. So we walk in, and my friend tells him, he said, Prabhuji, he says, how come you only have Ramakrishna's picture? You don't have Prabhupada's picture. He said, oh, that picture is for my workers. It's not for me. See, they're very clever people, I mean, they're very sharp, So right away he had an excuse why he didn't have Prabhupada's picture, only Ramakrishna's picture. So then I'm sitting down also. There was one chair I was sitting, in this big round table where everyone's working. It's like his little factory. And he said, whenever Prabhupada would come here, he would sit in this chair, the one I was sitting in. So I got up right away. but, for him it was a regular chair, right? But he knew things because, he's Prabhupada's nephew. But then I realized, when we were walking away, I realized these are mundane people. You would think, it's this family, they would be pure devotees, but they were very mundane. They were attached to material life, right? They didn't really recognize who Prabhupada was, and so I mean, it's a little hard to conceive that they could be so mundane. But that doesn't mean they're bad people, right? But they're not really dedicated to serving Krishna. They're just normal Hindus, right? So here Prabhupada is amongst them, he's one of them, but yet they can't understand him. So this is something that happens a lot, just like even Jesus' time, only about 12, 13, 14 people understood that he's the Son of God. That's all. Out of all the people that saw him, there were just a handful of people that recognized who he was. So in the same way, if Lord Chaitanya came today, okay, he got thousands and thousands of people following him, chanting Hare Krishna. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to the population of India today and the rest of the world. So it's, not everybody, even if you're standing in front of God, it doesn't mean you're going to understand. That's why it says here that it's very difficult. It's a very rare thing for people to actually surrender to the Lord and understand, the Lord's energies and things like that. Like he says, he said that Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Bhistabhirya Evanija Rupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Evanija Sata Kilatma Bhutto Govinda Mahadipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. All these energies are emanating from Krishna in the spiritual world and in the material world. And he says that he is within everything and he's without everything. So this is hard to understand. How can you be inside everything and outside, right? But he said just like the material elements are in the universe and they're not in the universe. Now how is that? Well, there's 7 coverings of the universe made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence, covering the universe. And each one is 10 times bigger than the other. So there's more dark matter than matter in the universe. So there is matter in the universe and there's matter on the outskirts of the universe. Therefore you can say just like the material elements are in the universe and they're not in the universe. And the same way I'm in the universe and I'm not in the universe. He's in the universe by his expansion of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and Shirodakshaya Vishnu. Right? But yet he's enjoying transcendental pastimes with his devotees in the spiritual world. So he's inside and he's outside. So people can't understand it. How is that possible? That someone can be inside and outside and present in every atom of the universe? You know, it's just incomprehensible. But devotees can understand because they have faith in Guru and Krishna. Okay, so he had a question. No, okay, he left. So. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. We'll stop there. Haribol. It says, I worship the personality Godhead. This is Brahma Samhita, verse number 32. I worship the personality Godhead Govinda, who, by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss, enjoys his own and expanded forms. Simultaneously, he enters into every atom of the creation. So he's within every atom of the creation, in the heart of every living entity, and yet he's in the spiritual world enjoying with his transcendental associates. So it's incomprehensible for materialistic people. Okay, someone can chant. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Bandha Muhi Savadhana Mate
Bandha Muhi Savadhana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Chitete Koriyaya
Harana kori ho mane asha
Arana Koriya Maneyasa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sa
Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu say
Sakshudan Dila Jai Janme Prabhu Se
Divya Gyan Hirde Prakashito
Divya Gyani Me Prakasita
Prema Bhakti Jaha hoite Avidya Vinasha jaite
Ma Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasa Jate
Vede Gai Jahara Charito
Vidigai Janaracharita
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhana Janara Bandhu
Lokenath Lokera Jivana
Vidigai Vijavarana
Ha ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pada Chaya Ebe Jaz Gushuk Tribhuwana
Vyas Vishakti Bhuvana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Jaya Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Praskatya Desatarine
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Nanda Yadvaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajika Chasta Tarasatara Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavini ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sri Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samveda Bhaktavinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Pramana. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthana Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Disatani Gaura Premanandi Hari. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross over this material suffering and attain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, Yosha Mercy, is friend of the poor and Lord and Master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your famous spread all throughout the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Ki Jai. Namo Tvrishta